Welcome to episode 238 of Empty the Bench on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. He's Tom Albano. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media for Empty the Bench at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow us on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Just over 770 subscribers on our slow approach to 1,000. Please help us out. Go to our website, etbpodcast.com. All the latest blogs and information as well. Dog days of summer. NBA season is over. Boo-hoo. Baseball season. Hockey's pretty much on the way done as well, but not over yet, as they're trying to make a feat that hasn't happened since 1942, which could be possibly on its way. But also, ETB, as I said, etbpodcast.com. Find all the blogs there as well. Listen wherever you get your podcasts, not just for this show, but for all the shows on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Spotify, Apple, Odyssey, iHeart, all the audio platforms you could possibly want. You can find our shows as well. Also, the reason I wasn't here last week was because I was doing a Playback stream. And this show is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun than others, but we spend too much of our time, watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. Now, just because the NBA season is over, we will be continuing with Playback and our partnership, so don't you worry, there'll be plenty of content to go around, but we'll announce that when we get that information at a further date. A lot to get into. Big-time legend in the MLB world has passed away. We'll get to that. Big name. Obviously not our generation or our era by any means, but everybody knows who this is.
One of the greatest ever.
One of the greatest. I think he's like 6th or 7th all time in the home run chase. Also, might even be more than that, actually. Over 600 career home runs. You'll know who it is as soon as we say it. Also, the reason I missed the show last week was to watch Game 5 of the Celtics. And thank you, Zambando, for filling in on the side while I watched a really shitty game in the process of it. And the Mavericks basically embarrassed themselves for 4 out of the 5 games. And the Celtics, obviously, were going to have one clunker. That's how they are. But they just dominated the NBA Finals. We'll talk about that.
They dominated the whole season, basically.
Oh, they won the Eastern Conference with like a month and a half to go. That's how dominant they were in the regular season. Also, we'll get into some NBA other news as well. Monty Williams fired again. But this time, instead of $20 million, it's much more than $20 million. I'll leave it at that. Also, NBA draft, final prediction. Obviously, I don't think we really care about anybody else except Bronny James at this point. That's really the name that everyone is wondering. Is he going to get overdrafted? Will he not go at all? Which is obviously not going to happen.
And it could potentially affect NBA free agency, which starts next weekend.
And the new rules this time around is after the last game of the NBA Finals was over, negotiating was officially allowed to begin. So that different rules this time around. So I guess you could throw the legal tampering period out the window.
We are in legal tampering.
So, which is such an oxymoronic phrase in every way, shape, or form. Also, MLB injuries galore, right?
Yeah. MLB injuries galore. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, which I know you want to talk about. You did miss Zan and I talking about her with the Team USA controversy last week, but you had a whole YouTube short TikTok that you put out on that, so that's that. Jose Abreu is being owed $30 million as he gets cut. Yes, it's not a coach getting cut like it was in the NBA, but we have something like that in the MLB world. Unfortunately, I have to talk about Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler again. I'm getting really sick of talking this.
This is fascinating to me, though, as someone who doesn't follow the sport as much as you do. Who I have, and I've gotten into more of the UFC over the years as we've added more content, and that's one of the things I'll talk about at the end with another show. But I just find it fascinating. I actually have opinions on this. I didn't think I was going to, but I actually have some thoughts on this whole thing and how I think something doesn't seem 100% up to snuff, but that's Conor McGregor in a nutshell. So,
some other things we got talking about towards the end. Trevor Lawrence getting a 5-year extension. We'll talk about Grimace. Talk about the mask.
Just leave it at Grimace. That's a perfect context. Just leave it at Grimace. You're going to be very confused, but we're going to talk about Grimace.
If you know, you know. And then we'll also talk about Bill Belichick and what he's been doing off the field ever since his. I don't want to say he never officially season, so he has, let's say, other ventures.
Let's just say keep the number 50 in mind. Just keep the number 50 in mind. You're gonna have to keep that in mind all show because it's towards the end. But just remember when I say to you, say remember them 50, and we get to the story, you're gonna be like, I get it. So just hold on to that number.
But let's talk about the number 24 right now. Let's talk about the legendary Willie Mays. His number 24, of course, retired by both the San Francisco Giants and the New York Mets. One of the greatest baseball players to have ever played this game, passing away just a couple of days ago at the age of 93. His final stats, 301 batting average, 3,293 hits, 660 home runs. One of the only players, there's only a handful to get the 3,000 hit and 600 plus home run mark. He did that. Plus, just over 1,900 RBIs and 339 stolen bases. Helped lead the then New York Giants, yes, not the football team, but the Giants before they were in San Francisco, to a World Series championship in 1954. 24-time All-Star. 24 All-Star appearances for number 24.
Is that all years? Is that all years for him?
Yes, I believe this was part of it was in the era when there were 2 All-Star games in a year.
That's right. I actually remember reading about that as well.
It was like in the 50s and 60s, or there was just the 50s. I don't know. There was like 2 All-Star games in a year.
I mean, the Incredibles, obviously Hall of Famer. That's no doubt. 2-time MVP, 12-time Gold Glove. Now, let me point out something.
He's one of the greatest fielders ever. If you ever watch him play the field, you ever see those old school highlights.
Wait a minute. The catch. The catch.
The greatest catch of all time, in my opinion. And I'm not somebody who watches the Derek Jeter catch in Boston from July 2000. I mean, in Yankee Stadium against Boston on July 2004 on loop.
I mean, people could debate. The Willie Mays catch, I think, has a ton of difficulty. One, because you're running the opposite way, and you can't see the ball. You're almost
he couldn't see the ball. He dives, and he catches the ball.
And makes the throw back, like on the fly. People forget the throw afterwards.
I say Willie Mays was ahead of his time.
Yeah. Also, Rookie of the Year, 2-time MVP, World Series batting title, and Major League Player of the Year. Was that a different award back then?
I believe it was.
I don't know. But whatever it is, he's earned every accolade in the book that you could possibly think. Also a book author.
Book author, yes. And actually, remember, he actually started his career in the Negro Leagues. And of course, the day this is airing, Nick, is the game at Rickwood Field.
Yes, I did read about that. I heard it was a big deal when they announced that news when it came out. Tough day in Major League Baseball country. Dealing with a legend passing away. Quick story. When I was still working in radio, we almost booked him for an interview on the show that I was working at, and we were going to interview him for the book. Unfortunately, he was sick that day. But from what I understood, he tells the most incredible stories of baseball I've ever heard. Mm-hmm. I've watched some interviews with him. You're never going to see a guy like this in baseball again, where he plays amazing defense, hits well, hits for average, by the way, also, which you don't see in today's game anymore. Average 300 his whole career.
Yeah.
You don't see that anymore.
And I mean, you think about, like we talked about with the fact that he was one of the greatest fielders, not the greatest fielder ever, ends up going to the Hall of Fame, plus the 300 batting average lifetime, goes to the Hall of Fame in 1979, named to the All-Century team in 1999 at the end of the 90s, and President Obama gave him the Medal of Freedom in 2015. Now, he was not, because we talk about Willie Mays and we talk about the legends, especially on a day like today, where we talk about the legends of the Negro Leagues. You know, Willie Mays was one of those players who, you know, it was inspirational. I mean, he wasn't, like, if you go to his Wikipedia page, we'll say this, that he wasn't very outspoken against, you know, racial issues, social issues, especially of that time. But he was a popular figure. People loved him, and in Harlem, and we can actually talk about this being New Yorkers. In Harlem, there's a neighborhood which is right by where the Polo Grounds was, where he is. You know, we talk about how much of a legend he is here. He was such an influence over there.
Yeah, and by the way, like the nickname also, Say Hey Kid. Like,
Say Hey Kid.
The kid, like, he really got along with the younger fans in the game. I mean, I think Say Hey Kid was just because he felt and played like a kid his whole career. Just like that was his game.
Absolutely. But you mentioned, like, he played stickball with kids during his
That
free
was
time.
it. I couldn't remember exactly, but yeah.
Yeah, he played stickball with kids.
Like, you don't see that anymore. If you send a baseball player out on the street, they're going to get mobbed in today's, like, again, different era. I think the reason he probably did speak out on the issues is because, again, different time in the 50s, in the 60s, totally different era than it is today. So, I don't know. I mean, my opinion, if he started in baseball, Major League Baseball, right away, he's probably the all-time home run leader, in my opinion.
Well, trying to think, because they just integrated the Negro League stats. So I'm wondering how many home runs he has now when they added those.
I have no idea exactly. I don't know, because I think they only did it for certain statistics. I don't know if they did it for everything, but 660 was the original number he had in Major League Baseball. I mean, I just remember that number standing out when the home run chase was going on. But I mean, we're all going to remember Willie Mays in that regard. So, just a legend.
Nick, that's sorry. I was just Nick. Okay, yeah, I got you. There are no box scores available from when he did go deep, when he was playing with the Barons back then. So unfortunately, it's one of those things that's going to be a mystery.
Wow, didn't see that one coming.
Because he only played from, like, it was like 48, 49, and 50, I think, with the Birmingham Barons.
Interesting. So I guess it probably wasn't significant enough, the statistics, to really know what the numbers would have been. But it's a legend. It's a legend in his own right. He'll be missed, and I'm sure he'll get I don't know if he has a statue outside of the Giants Stadium or not, or San Francisco Stadium or not, but he does. He deserves a statue, I feel like.
I think he does.
But
sworn he does. Yeah, he does.
Oh, yeah, that makes total sense because he's a legend of the game. He'll always be a legend of the game. Think about in the last couple of years. So what was it? It was Hank Aaron, who passed away a couple of years ago. Willie Mays now. We're losing all the greats of the game. So tough day in MLB land, but rest in peace. And I guess we move on.
Going over now to the NBA. The Boston Celtics, of course, end up winning their A-team championship. Should not be too much of a surprise. Yeah, as you mentioned during the intro, now surpassing the Lakers for most NBA championships by a team. Just a complete obliteration of the Dallas Mavericks. And I can say, it's a very rare thing to hear on ETV, Nick, where somebody gets a golden check mark for an accurate prediction. Boston in 5, I said.
I'll give it to you. You got it right. The Mavericks are a disgrace. That's that, and I mean that seriously, because they were the hot team going into the NBA Finals, and Luka and Kyrie were considered the all-time backcourt, which drove me fucking insane that they were calling them the best backcourt all time. They haven't won anything yet. How can you say that Kyrie and Luka are the greatest backcourt of all time and they haven't won anything? Like, come on. Like, and Luka, I can't blame this on Luka at all, because Luka was averaging triple-double numbers during the NBA Finals. Kyrie was the one who looked like garbage for Game 4 and Game 5 alone. Couldn't play in Boston either.
I mean, Nick, I said it during one of the playback streams. Luka and how he played here reminded me of 2017, 2018 LeBron James playing for Cleveland in the season, where he basically was carrying the team on his back. And unfortunately, you can get to the finals. LeBron has kind of proved that as a player. But when you're playing a powerhouse, like he played the powerhouse Warriors, here they played a powerhouse Boston team who won 62 games during the regular season and lost all of maybe three games total during this postseason. Just not going to happen. I understand that there were teams on the East that, we could have given them a little bit of a run for their money. And there were certainly teams on the West that if they met in the finals, you think about that 1 seed with the Oklahoma City Thunder, the 2 seed with the Denver Nuggets. Mavericks themselves were a great team with Luke and talking about the defensive ability of them. But at the end of the day, Boston was 62-20. If like you mentioned, they could have. They did end up They did wrap up the Eastern Conference. If I could talk, about a month and a half, 2 months left in the season. It would have been an embarrassment if they didn't win. It would have been awful.
Yeah. Looking at the Boston Celtics and looking at the way their season went, there was a lot of... It's weird because they go through some ups and downs, even though they have a really, really great, fantastic season. They run away. Like I said, they were, for a month and a half leading up to the playoffs, they were a dominant team, and no one could beat them. Even the teams that were right behind them, the Knicks, who were a 2 seed at the end of the season, they were not going to catch them. Philly fell off the front of the map, or the back of the map, however you want to call it.
I feel like no matter who you put in front of Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals, Boston would have had their way with them either way.
Yeah. The only thing that was going to beat the Celtics was the Celtics. As cliche as that sounds, and as cliche as that sentence is, the Celtics, even in the playoffs, I think they lost 3 games the whole playoffs.
Yeah. And Jalen, we've had the concerns about Kristaps Porzingis going down, but you look at Jaylen Brown stepping up the way that they did. There's nothing else to say. It goes back to what we said at the end of game. Joined you for the end of game 3, and I had said, they brought out their best. They brought out everything in that game, and it wasn't enough. So he said, if that's the case, there was no beating the Celtics at that point.
And I really thought the Mavs, like I said, were coming off a hot streak, played really well. Of course, the overreactive statements of the media even say, best backcourt of all time, Luka, Kyrie, best backcourt. And I was like, come on. They haven't won anything. How can you put all time on a backcourt that's not won anything? That was the most bizarre thing I ever saw. On top of it, Kyrie stunk in Boston, which probably for his own right, because everyone is saying ever since he stomped on the Celtics lucky logo in the center of the court. He's played like garbage and just could not function in the series. And I think in the final game, I think he had 21 and just was nowhere to be found. And Luka, like everyone's yelling at Luka, and I understand why they're yelling at Luka because
No, you
they're
don't
mad.
fault Luka for this. You don't fault Luka for this when he put up a triple double nearly every game.
Right. That's where I was going to go with that. He basically was averaging triple double stats for the NBA Finals, but the problem is his shoulders were probably hurting because the whole team was on his back the entire series. And if it wasn't for him, this would have been a complete embarrassing sweep without Luka on the court. Now, in Game 5, he looked terrible shooting the ball because he's shooting off 1 foot, fadeaway jumpers. Now, when they're going in, he looks really good. When he's shooting terribly, the world is falling and the Mavs and the sky are falling. So it was a mismatch to begin with, the NBA Finals. I just thought the Mavs were going to coast on a hot streak. Now, the 10-day break did not help it, obviously. Because if there's no 10-day break, I think the Mavs might have had a better chance to win that series, just riding momentum into the NBA Finals. And the Celtics, who knows? Because they were losing game twos in every series. It was very odd the way they were losing their games. And when they got beat badly when they were losing the 3 games, including game 4 in the NBA Finals where they lost by 40 plus.
No, that wasn't game 4. Game 4 they won.
I mean, no, I'm saying the Mavs beat them by 40 plus.
Oh, okay.
So, like, it was an embarrassing fashion that the Celtics lost. And I said, oh, wow, maybe that's the Mavs gaining momentum back. Maybe they win game 5. Because if they win game 5 in Boston and they can somehow get this back to Dallas in game 6, maybe they win the game at home on game 6. And you never know what happens in game 7. So it could have been a whole different series. And obviously, I'm going to say the phrase that I say all the time, which is a fallacy of a predetermined outcome. Because I can go all the way back to game 3 and say that they probably should have won game 3 if it wasn't for them bizarrely and completely falling apart after the third quarter. So if they win game 3 and this is a 2-2 series, we're talking about a whole different series considering Kristaps Porzingis was not 100% healthy in this series.
But coulda, woulda, shoulda. And I mean, at the end of the day, like sometimes we can have these debates about did the best team actually win the NBA championship? Did the best team win the championship in any sport? Because we talk about the regular season, the playoffs always being 2 different beasts. But this, I think, is a very clear exception. Yes, the best team in the NBA did walk away with the championship, dominated the season, dominated the playoffs. This was honestly one of the most legendary NBA teams, you can make the argument, because they dominated the season. And I mean, it's not a 70, it's not a 72-9 Bulls. It's not it's not the Bulls. It's not the Warriors. But my point is that considering how much they accomplished, how far they dominated the entire conference, and then how they had near sweeps in every single round, I mean, there's nothing that you can really say to kind of disprove that this was not a fantastic team that is going to be an all-timer.
The one thing I would say, though, is because a lot of NBA fans are coming out and saying, well, too easy, they didn't have any competition. Let's put a kibosh on that right now. Okay? Because
is it the point to try and build the best team so it doesn't look like you have competition?
No, but like people are pissed off because like the Celtics had it too easy and all that nonsense. And I was like, and I'm like,
too, but come on.
and I was like, guys, I was like, you built the best team to be dominant, not to judge the amount of competition that you're playing against. Now, the one other fallacy of predetermined outcome, I will say, is the Pacers series. If Tyrese Halliburton is 100% healthy and he's available for that series, does that go 6-7 games? And is that a more competitive series? That's the one thing I would say there. I don't know.
I don't know.
Also,
I
also
will,
the Knicks.
also next, I give this one caveat. I do think that we should call up the people from Secret Base, that YouTube channel, formerly the SB Nation, and I think we have a new. I know they talked about the 2002 finals between the Lakers and Nets being the worst. I think we might have another nomination here for worst NBA finals. I know this wasn't a sweep, but like you talk about, just the fact that almost every game seemed like a blowout.
It was a blowout. Even on the opposite end, when the Mavs won, it was a blowout. I mean, there was not a close game in this finals.
Game three being maybe the lone exception, but said before, then you could point to the fact that the Mavericks were leading everything and then just in the fourth quarter.
The fourth quarters were not competitive in any of these games at all. Like, once we got to the fourth quarter, most of these games, like, it was cruise control, and you were seeing the bench coming in for both games, which is, you rarely see that in an NBA Finals game, the way the appearance and the way the game is going. That's kind of what threw everybody off. And you know what? The ratings were bad. I looked at the ratings. They were not great for an NBA Finals. And I don't blame them, because when you have 40-point blowouts, you're not going to watch. Now, we, on the other hand, we have a partner we work with, so we watch every game from beginning to end. And you know what? You make the best of a bad situation, of a bad game, and you do what you got to do to get through games. But I wish we had more competitive games. I mean, I like the dunks. I like the alley-oops. I like all that stuff. But everyone wants to see a game with 2 to 3 minutes in the fourth quarter. There was no drama involved or to build up to win any of these games. The rounds before that had more closer games than the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
So it was a bad series. And I was already looking ahead. The Celtics are the runaway favorite again for next year already.
Not surprising.
And people are going to say, well, what about the Nuggets? And I'm like, all right. I mean, the Nuggets fell off. They had some injuries. But I would debate, because people are saying that Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA. I would debate that one a little bit now. Now with like a Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, I would debate that question a little bit more. Like, as a big man, Nikola Jokic is the best big man in the NBA. There's no doubt there. Over Giannis, over Joel Embiid. I don't think those two come close to what Jokic does on the court for his team. Most valuable player, and I mean literally for the team. If he's not there, they don't win games. So, congratulations to the Celtics, 18th championship banner. People are upset at the Lakers a little bit, and I saw people going off about this because they don't count the Disney championship as a championship. But
well, I mean, the Celtics have already passed them anyway, so
they passed them anyway. So that's neither here nor there. All right. What's next?
This.
Oh boy.
That Monty Williams, after just one season, a very memorable season for all the wrong reasons in Detroit, has been fired. $65 million still left on his contract, which he is going to get paid in full for that.
Yeah. So the Detroit Pistons are a dumpster fire completely. Going nowhere. They lost a lot of games. I think, didn't they have that incredible losing streak to start the season? I mean,
yep.
They're gonna. I think, who got the first overall pick this year? Did they get it again or no?
No,
I don't even remember.
I don't remember who. I think the Pistons fell to like 5.
Actually, that's right. Pistons fell to 5, and that was a huge upset considering they had the least amount of wins. But I'm just looking up the more on the Monty Williams.
Yeah. I mean, this is not the only team that's basically paying out Monty Williams at this point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you have the
Arizona.
Suns.
I mean,
the Suns
Phoenix
are
Suns,
paying him $20 million. The Pistons are paying him $65, and he might go coach for another team next year. Which
they get paid by 3 teams, which is incredible. By the way, Atlanta Hawks won the lottery. The Hawks have the number 1 pick.
That's ridiculous, considering how bad the Pistons really are. The Hawks are really not bad. They just are kind of in a little bit of, I wouldn't even call it a rebuild. I would call it a restructure, what the Hawks are kind of going through. Trae Young got hurt really bad in the second half, and that kind of derailed their whole season. The Pistons should be the number 1 overall pick. They just got caught bad luck in the lottery balls, as they say.
I mean, I know that pick very well as a Knicks person.
Yeah. But $65 million is a lot of money. You have to be in a bad situation if you're going to fire a coach with $65 million left on their contract that has to be paid out. Okay.
And I mean, considering the fact that the Pistons have a lot of young guys and the Pistons level of talent, like you mentioned, Nick, not as great compared to everything else. Can you really put all of this on Monty Williams?
No, absolutely not. And here's the other issue you're going to have as a franchise in Detroit. It's not a destination place.
No.
So who the hell are you going to get to come here and be a head coach in Detroit? This
is not the bad boys of the 90s and early 2000s.
No, it's not Chauncey Billups. It's not Ben Wallace. It's not Rip Hamilton. It's not Rasheed Wallace. It's not the team that beat the Lakers in the NBA Finals. It's a totally different scenario in that regard. But who's going to coach? You're not going to get a big name. And you'll find this scenario wild that I heard earlier a couple days ago. People were saying that the Pistons should have gone after Dan Hurley.
I think if Dan Hurley was not taking a Lakers job, he's not taking a Pistons job.
I'm saying in the scenario of if he really wants to build up through the NBA, taking a job and starting lower and work your way up.
I understand, but they also couldn't have given him the offer like the Lakers gave. And if he did that Laker offer, he probably was not going to take.
Well, I heard from some insiders that he really would have had to be blown away to walk away from UConn. Like massively blown away, like $100 million blown away was the only way he was leaving. Excuse me, UConn. So I don't think he was ever leaving. I think he was just entertaining the offer because you know what they say in the business: you always entertain somebody's offer, even if you're not going to take it. But the Pistons are in trouble. They have Cade Williams. Is that his name? Who they just signed to a big deal. He was a very early first round pick. They have Ivy, who they got early, a draft after that.
Oh, you're talking Cade Cunningham.
Cade Cunningham, excuse me. Who has his good and his bad moments, but he is a good player. But they have a lot of rebuilding to do, and I just don't know how they're going to do that at this point in time. The Pistons are probably in the worst rebuild moment of their franchise, and they got to figure
out a lot.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at some of the numbers. So the Pistons are 94 and 290, a 245 winning percentage over the past 5 seasons. Think about that number. 94 wins total in 5 seasons. Easily the worst in the league. Detroit was the 3rd youngest team in the league this past season. Also. So they're young.
I think
they need a coach. Yeah.
I think about the days of suffering with the Knicks in the 2000s. It never even got that bad.
Right. And I just don't see anybody taking the Pistons' job of significance. That's the issue I think you're running into at this point. Like the same thing with the Lakers are having the opposite effect, being a big market, but they can't get a head coach if they tried. So this is the opposite on a low market, and no one wants to coach. So I'm not surprised. Monty Williams will end up with another job somewhere else.
Yeah. Speaking of, we talk about young players and the draft. NBA draft coming up next week. And the question at this point, and the only question that really we're focused on right now, and that free agency could have an influence from, is what happens with Bronny James.
Yeah. I think he's going to get overdrafted. Unfortunately, I think he's going to end up way, way, way overvalued and overdrafted somewhere in the mid 20s to the upper 30s. I think he's going to get drafted when they're saying he should be projected as a 55 or a 56. That's really where he should. But somebody stupid besides the Lakers is going to try and overdraft him so that LeBron comes to their team.
The Mavericks, there was a report. Now, we've talked about in our reports about the Phoenix Suns being interested potentially, the Lakers being interested in drafting Bronny so that way they can try to re-sign LeBron. Over the last week, I think there was a report out there that the Mavericks, if he managed to slip, because there's only 58 picks this year to do a couple of pick forfeits, if he managed to slip to the final pick of the draft, the Mavericks might have an interest in taking him.
Now, there's two scenarios which you talk about, the Mavs and the Suns. The Mavs, the only scenario would be obviously putting Kyrie and LeBron back together in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know if that's going to work out, though.
But as you kind of said, it had to be the last pick of the draft, because now this year, round two was going to be the next night. So the Mavericks, if that report is true, then the Mavericks are saying, we'd be interested in a LeBron-Kyrie reunion, but we're not going to spend a first-night pick on him.
Nobody should spend a first-round pick on Bronny. It is the biggest waste of a pick, spending that high. Bronny James averaged 5 points in college basketball with USC this past season. He hasn't proven that he could be high-level talent. And LeBron and him could go train at the Lakers facility for 1,000,000 days in a row. I don't care. It doesn't prove anything to me. He hasn't proven anything on the court. And the other scenario with the Lakers, or actually, hold the Lakers for a second. The Suns, which you mentioned, the Suns. They're in salary cap hell. They can't afford to put LeBron on this roster because, as sick as this is going to sound for someone who's 39 years old, he's projected to make over $50 million.
I mean, it's LeBron.
But think about this. The big three, as they like to say in Phoenix, Booker, Durant, and Beal, are all going to make $50 million next season. The number, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I think it was like 135 or 36, I think was the payroll cap. Actually, I have it right here. So the 2023-24 season salary cap was 136. Now, just to give you a comparison number, they were at 191 this past season, which means they were $54 million over the salary cap this past season. Already, they picked up another $15 million without doing anything. They're $206 million payroll. So where are they fitting LeBron in a salary cap scenario with that money? They're not.
You're going to have a team full of league minimum guys at that point.
But you have to remember also, the rules have changed for the mid-level exception, that if you're way over the cap, you don't get the mid-level exception anymore.
That's why I said league minimum.
I just don't see how they could do it, though. I mean, Bronny would be a league minimum, obviously, if they draft him. Actually, no, he wouldn't be a league minimum because depending on where he signs would be the contract that he gets based on the draft.
I was gonna say, and you don't think Rich Paul might pull a string or two?
Well, you can't because the draft precedes your contract, at least when you come out. Yeah. Same thing as the NFL. The NFL is the same way. But I look at the Suns roster. They're literally going to have to gut it like they did in Miami when LeBron was there. And, I mean, they made the best out of nothing when they brought in Rashard Lewis and Ray Allen and Mike Miller and made those guys who were league minimum. Ray Allen hit probably the biggest shot in Miami history with the three-pointer in the corner. So we'll see what happens with Bronny. But something stupid's going to happen. I just know it.
All right, we got to keep things moving. So, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. I know this is something that you wanted to talk about. Obviously, Caitlin Clark getting another hard foul. This time, a victim of Angel Reese of a hard foul. So, I mean, it just continues for her.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a flagrant. She hit her on the side of the head. It was not a play on the ball. As there are people saying it was a play on the ball, it absolutely was not. Probably could have been ejected for it, actually, depending on refs. They called it a flagrant one. Angel Reese is the definition of a bad villain in sports. Basically, she acts like the tough person. She's going to say all the mean, horrible things. And then when stuff goes against her, she cries about it and complains. And like the quotes of her after the game where she said, "Oh, well, Caitlin Clark gets a special whistle for playing for her foul calls." And it's just like, come on, man. You're going to say she gets everyone of all the stars get special foul calls in the game. Look at LeBron for his whole career in the NBA. Gets every call. He flops and he gets a foul call. Okay?
I mean, it's not right, for somebody to have a special foul call, but one is reality, and two, at the same time, you see what happens with Caitlin Clark. You see the fouls that come against her. They've been rough, at least rougher than normal fouls that you see in the WNBA.
Yeah, and here's the other issue. Every other WNBA player is jealous of Caitlin Clark in every way, shape, or form. And people can say, but Nick, what do you mean they're jealous? Yes, they're jealous because they're not getting the attention that she gets. First of all, they should be thanking their lucky stars that the WNBA is getting as much attention as it is because she's bringing the attention to the sport, not the off-the-court antics, which she has not done. And I give her a lot of credit for not falling for the media antics that guys like Pat McAfee and Stephen A. Smith have caused off court and caused all those issues in that regard. And by the way, I think everyone gave Pat McAfee a hard time for no reason because he made the mistaken quote that he said, but she's the reason why the ratings are better.
Like I said the other week, we talked about that. I think it was 2 weeks ago. At least Pat McAfee came out and basically owned up to what happened, as opposed to Stephen A., who doubled down on his comments.
Right. And like I said, Caitlin Clark is going to cause the TV rights to triple in value because people want to watch Caitlin Clark play. Look at all the partners that are involved now. ESPN, Ion, Amazon. They're all involved because of Caitlin Clark, not because of everybody else. So let me clarify. There are a lot of good WNBA players. This league has been way better now than it was. But look at the statistics and the numbers for the games. They're the highest they've been in 23 years. Highest ratings. The Angel Reese Caitlin Clark game was at 2.3 million and spiked at 3 million views being watched.
Last time you have ratings, I'm not a WNBA expert with ratings, but the last time I think of a lot of people watching the WNBA and attention on them, the days of Lisa Leslie, basically.
I was just going to say the same thing. And then when she had the first dunk in WNBA history, that was a huge ratings boost that caused everybody to watch. But people are just jealous of Caitlin Clark. And at the same time, quick thought on this, obviously, because you did it last week. Team USA had a massive gaffe, leaving her off the roster. And I guarantee you, NBC is pissed.
I was just going to say, you were talking about, media partners having a share of the pie. NBC is probably kicking and screaming still right now.
So that goes to show you that being on the roster, and they made this scenario up that they're saying she was going to be mad that she wasn't going to get enough minutes to play. It's not about minutes for Team USA and the Olympics. It's about making the team and being part of a team and a camaraderie to win for your country. Okay? It's not about the I. There's no I in team. So people need to relax and accept that Caitlin Clark is the reason why they're growing. Angel Reese, too. Angel Reese is actually a really good player when she gets her head out of her own ass and stops acting like an idiot at times. But they're both really good players. But Caitlin Clark is going to always gain the larger amounts of attention.
Okay, moving over now from basketball to baseball. And the big story at this point has got to be all the injuries that are piling up. People aren't strangers who don't know. They were big Yankee fans. And at this point, Aaron Judge was held out of the lineup in Wednesday's game because he had been hit on the hands during Tuesday night's game between the Yankees and Orioles. Anthony, so IL, 60-day IL as of right now with a fracture in his arm. Mookie Betts of the Dodgers also injured. Is going to be out about, 6 to 8 weeks. Yamamoto, with injury. And at this point, it feels like something that we talked about, at the start of this season, where you were seeing all these injuries to all these names. Primarily then it was pitchers. Now it's not exclusively pitchers, but it's not a good look for baseball. And now this is not obviously something they can control for the most part, but this is not good for the game.
No, it's not good for baseball. Well, the game has obviously changed. Pitchers are getting hurt a ton. Now you're seeing the big stars in the field, especially like the Aaron Judge injury where he gets hit in the hand and you can't really control a fastball hitting your hand. Now, I think the Yankees dodged a bullet and it probably was just a contusion in the hand and he'll be out a few days and come back. The Mookie Betts one is just unfortunate. The Dodgers are so loaded with depth that I think Mookie Betts being out for 6 to 8 weeks is not going to kill them 100%. The pitching injury, obviously, with Yamamoto is a big one. I think that's going to hurt. But the Dodgers are so loaded that I just don't see them losing any scenario. We saw Gleyber Torres get hit in the hand. Yankees were mad at Orioles pitching after the game because, and I've seen this with the Orioles all year, they're a little aggressive inside with pitching and they're hitting people a lot this year. So I don't know. People think the Orioles are doing it on purpose. I really don't know.
I don't think so. Although when I was couching around some highlights before we started recording, Joe Girardi had an interesting thought. Do you think, obviously this isn't going to solve every single injury because not every single injury was done only. And then obviously we talked about Gleyber getting hit in the hands as well. Do you think it should be mandated that they do a mandation of batting gloves when hitters go up to bat?
You really don't see that anymore, though, the old-fashioned style of the game where they're playing without batting gloves. There's only two people I can think of back when we were younger that didn't wear batting gloves, and they were both catchers. One was Posada. The other was Jason Kendall. Those are the only two that really stuck out to me.
But they did But Girardi also brought up that the reason Glaber may not have been affected as much, there's a newer style of batting glove that has some extra padding in it.
Yeah, they started doing that quite a few years ago. They put like a heavier material in the glove, in the batting glove, so it absorbs part of the hit when it hits your hand. So I did see that partially, but this is a weird time of the year to be getting these bad injuries. You're halfway through the season, essentially at this point, and Mookie Betts being out 6 to 8 weeks. We're talking about 2 months. He's going to come back right before the playoff run. Um, again, I don't see them being affected, but Mookie Betts is Mookie Betts. He's one of the top stars in the game.
And you're already dealing with no Ronald Acuna Jr. again, out for the season with his injury that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Talking about some pretty major names that are going down. And, this is not a good look for baseball, especially when you've got the All-Star game around the corner, because that means you're going to have an All-Star game with no Mookie Betts, probably no Yamamoto. Obviously, Shohei wasn't going to pitch this season at all, so you're losing half of him.
I mean, Aaron Judge, depending on what his situation is.
Well, let's not talk about him, but Garrett Cole certainly. I know he returned tonight, but he's probably not going to pitch All-Star game. I know it's a month away.
He's not going to qualify for it. So
right. But if somehow to be selected, I don't think he would pitch because I know it's a month away, but why risk anything?
Well, and also with the rules in place, I think, what is it? Like if you pitch 2 or 3 days before the All-Star game, you can't even pitch in the game.
Yeah.
Anyway, which I think is a ridiculous rule to begin with. But I don't know. The All-Star game is kind of a joke now anyway. Like, I think they should just get rid of the All-Star game and just give the players a week off and call it a night. Because you don't want guys getting hurt even more. People go to the home run derby. People go in the All-Star game. Let's whack a bunch of home runs and screw up our swing even more.
But you don't really see the injuries within the All-Star game itself. And I was going to say something, but you're a proponent of there should be no All-Star games, period, regardless of sport.
Yeah, I just don't see the importance of an All-Star game. They tried to make it important by saying, let's determine home field advantage in the World Series, and that got shot down after 1 year.
But you don't exclusively mean just for baseball, right? Because you can't have a big...
Oh, no, I'm talking about all sports. I'm talking about all sports, and the scenario of the All-Star game means nothing. Look at what happened in the NBA. The game means nothing. It's a circus. There's no defense being played.
I know what you're talking about. I can't believe we still have this clip somewhere. Did we not have this clip anymore? We might have got it. Actually, I think you got rid of the clip, or somebody got rid of the clip.
Was it the Adam Silver clip?
Yeah, I saw it there recently. I guess.
Maybe it's gone. Maybe I got rid of it. You're talking about the one where he talks about the game being the All-Star game being good. Yeah.
Well,
I know.
You scored the most points. Congratulations.
That's it. Yes, and it's such a ridiculous clip. Because you're like, all right, you scored the most points. Congratulations. Here's a trophy. Big deal.
All right. One other thing on the really quickly. Jose Abreu getting released. Still has $30 million left on his contract that the Astros are going to have to pay. I mean, people said a bad contract when it was first signed. And we talk about a massive decline. Jose Abreu. Jose Abreu was a pivotal piece of their World Series. And now,
$30 million in the hole. How desperate do you have to be to remove someone off your roster if you're willing to take a $30 million payroll hit on top of it? You know what I mean? Like, It's one of those things where you're just like, all right, I'm going to swallow $30 million because you've declined at such a high pace.
He was supposed to be, he wasn't part of the Astros, but he was supposed to be a part of this really big. Remember how they had all the young pieces on the White Sox? And everyone was thinking that something was going to happen with them, and just everybody kind of collapsed. that the Astros took a big chance and said he is going to be something. It was right after the Astros won the 2022 World Series. They required him and said he could, be a big piece for us. And nope, not at all.
Yeah, his bat was not a good scenario, and now 30 million in the hole, and he's gone.
All right. Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler. I'm so sick of talking about this. I mean, if you want my full thoughts, go listen to the most recent episode of the MMA Outsiders. Albano and I talked about this to basically the nth degree, along with all of the other madness that happen in combat sports. My point, though, is that they've talked about the idea of being now August, but there's a whole scheduling issue at this point because they are basically, in a long story short kind of way, but why I'm saying go listen to the episode, UFC may have to make a whole new card, a whole new pay-per-view, a whole new event now, just to have Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler have their fight.
Well,
this point, people are...
Oh, good.
At this point, people are questioning, because now we fully understand that it was the leg that Conor 3 years ago in the Dustin fight, that something has been reactivated in it. And it's like, at this point, is he even going to fight again? We may have seen a career-ending injury in that fight.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I was going to say is there's not many options available unless it's a new card. You have two cards. You have one in Perth at 305, and then you have
don't want to do.
And what was the other one? Brazil or
Abu Dhabi.
Or Abu Dhabi. So he's not going overseas. So that eliminates two cards right off the bat. They said that. Good.
They said they don't want the Sphere in September because they know that's going to sell the Mexican Independence Day weekend card.
Right. And the rumor that, and I asked Zan about this, I'll ask you about it. I think we talked about it. Why, maybe the scenario of 309 in New York, maybe putting him on the card with John Jones, which I thought would have been fascinating.
But the problem is twofold. One, John Jones and Stipe Miocic. This has been a fight just as long in the making, so they will flip you the bird and say, no, we want the main event. And number two, the second point actually doesn't involve the fighters. It actually doesn't even involve Dana White. It involves more of the business people, UMEI or Endeavor. I guess now you can call them TKO because
TKO,
the whole merger. Yeah. Basically, their mindset is, and this happened. Actually, let me explain what their mindset is. Their mindset is, let's put Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler on a card that we know could use a boost, and that ends up being the main event, rather than putting them on a pay-per-view that they know is, because that's why McGregor Chandler didn't get booked for 300 and got booked for International Fight Week instead. International Fight Week's still a big annual event, but if they feel like it kind of needs a boost, they'll try to throw something like Conor McGregor on there. So it's a business move, but it's a risky business move because look what happened with 303. No disrespect to Alex Pereira and Yuri Prohaska. I love that. But, and I said this on MMA Outsiders, it's a hardcore fans loving card. A casual, don't get offended by it, but a casual like yourself or somebody who only tunes in every now and again, or those who purchase tickets to see Conor McGregor in person, they are not going to love it.
Well, that I totally get, because when you pay a lot of money for tickets, you expect to get the product that you paid for. But the only reason I said on the card with John Jones, first of all, I think that would break record numbers on a card. I think every fan would come fill out that arena, especially at MSG, if they were somehow able to get it at Madison Square Garden. But I think you were saying to me also that does he have it where his fights can only be in Vegas, you were telling me?
Not that it has to be. He did fight the Dustin Poirier rematch. So the second fight in January of 21, that was in Abu Dhabi. That was in only because that was still during COVID time.
Fight Island, right?
Yeah, Fight Island. He did win the lightweight championship at MSG. That was when he became the champ in 2016. But ever since then, ever since his, boxing fight with Floyd Mayweather, with the exception of that Fight Island card, he's always fought Vegas.
Now, I have two thoughts here. One is after the Mayweather boxing match that he cleared $100 million check from, does he just not give a shit anymore? And he's just going to follow whatever works for him and that's it?
It's debatable. It's not illogical to feel that way.
Because he's made his money. Like, I don't think he's hurting from money, to be quite honest. And then the other scenario, which I brought up, that I heard from the media, which I think you know which one I'm talking about. Chael Sonnen.
I was gonna say, when you say media, you're talking about a former fighter.
Former fighter. So Chael Sonnen with Daniel Cormier, who does a show on ESPN Plus, basically did something which I couldn't believe, which was basically say, "Oh, he's not injured; he's in rehab." Now I know what he was trying to do. I think he was trying to drum up whatever drama he could do.
He's baiting you.
But I want to know how that's not, what's the word I'm looking for in legal terms?
How that's not slander?
Yeah, thank you. Like, what? How is that not a lawsuit? Yeah, to say someone is in rehab.
I guess my best guess is that Conor just isn't going to give a shit about that. Conor's somebody with really thick skin.
I agree. I'm just saying I thought it was an awkward scenario by Chael, but we know Chael's an awkward person. So, all right, let's move on.
All right, we got to quickly end the show. So quickly, 5-year extension for Trevor Lawrence. He's getting somewhere. It wasn't about like 175 or 200 something million dollars.
275.
275. He's going to get about 175 million that guaranteed, and I think I'll put it front right at signing.
Yeah. So it's the same value as Burrow. It's Burrow's contract, same value, but the 275 is just nuts. Yeah. Trevor Lawrence is way overpaid. He is not worth 275, nowhere near that number. But because quarterbacks are going at a premium, that's why he got 275. And that's why he's being paid.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Nick, because I did tease you off the air. I might have a little bit of, at least as of the time we're recording it, breaking news. So,
no.
This is a rumor coming in from MLF football. That's why I said I don't know if I can confirm. It's a little unconfirmed, but report. Some NFL owners are discussing a potential separate salary cap for just quarterbacks due to how crazy the market has gotten.
What?
Yes.
A separate salary cap?
For one position.
What? A separate Wait, whoa. Okay, where's the sound effect? Where's the sound effect? That one. What the Wait. How can you make a separate salary cap for a quarterback?
I mean, I understand the feelings about the market getting out of control, but I don't know how a second salary cap works.
It's one player, maybe two, maybe. Oh,
technically God. 3 for the emergency quarterback.
What's his name on the Saints? Would fit that category well.
Taysom
Hill. Like, good Lord. Like, separate salary cap.
Congratulations, Dick.
Oh, what?
Oh, that's God.
This one.
Oh, boy. It's been one of those shows.
Did the sound even play?
Yes, it did. I heard it.
I didn't even hear it on my end.
I heard it. Oh, God.
I don't hear any.
I don't know. But, all right, let's get to the end of the show. We have a few more stories left. Okay. Do you want to talk Grimace? Do you want to talk about Belichick or do you want to talk about Grimace? Okay, we'll talk about Grimace. I don't know how to explain this one, to be quite honest. But Grimace threw out the first pitch for the Mets, and the Mets have not lost the game.
It bounced, but it was a deep pitch. And yeah, Mets have not lost a game, going on a 7-game win streak. I actually need to see. They were playing tonight, so did they? Okay, it's still 3-3, bottom 7. So we don't know if they're going to get their 8th win just yet. But I mean, 7 straight victories. Nick, it's the Grimace era.
Oh, God. I thought I'd never hear those words in baseball. Oh, well, Grimace throws out the first pitch, and now we got a 7-game win streak in the balance.
Nick, McDonald's changed their profile picture on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, to Grimace wearing a Mets cap.
I saw a really funny video yesterday of Edwin Diaz coming into the game with the signature music, and they had Grimace around him on the video. And I was like, all right, now we're taking this way too far. Like, way, way, way too far at this point. And I was just like, all right, like, can we just take it down? What's next? Are we going to have, like, free Grimace shakes giveaways at Citi Field, like, from McDonald's?
You know it's coming back, right?
It's going to come back in New York. In New York only, it's going to come back. All right, free Grimace shake for every Mets victory for the rest of the year.
Oh God! All right. Speaking of oh God, how do we explain this one? So Bill Belichick has apparently been doing some extracurricular activities after not taking a coaching job.
Yeah, here's the problem, though. I guarantee you this is the sound effect that everybody is thinking in their head right now.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my God, stop you fucking lying.
And the answer is going to be, we're not lying. We're not lying. Go check the sources. I mean, a 72-year-old Bill Belichick is dating a 24-year-old cheerleader.
What?
Yeah. Do it again.
What?
Oh, God.
Apparently, Bill Belichick is dating somebody like 50 years younger than him, and apparently these two met. She's schooling, and apparently, what did you say? It was like a philosophy project?
They bonded over a philosophy project that she was doing for homework.
And I'm assuming it's not football philosophy.
No, it's not. It's just philosophy homework. She also was in cheerleading competitions, and apparently he was showing up and like cheering her on at her cheerleading competition. And I was just like, what is going? This is like a creepy father going and watching his kid compete in a contest. Oh wait, it's not father-daughter; it's boyfriend and girlfriend.
I think you know. I mean, Nick, you know, maybe a little bit of this is involved, right? That she's dating him for money. I would assume.
Again, we don't have that report, and as you used to say to me in the business, don't say something you might regret if we don't have the source to it 100%. But I might believe that a little bit, actually, but I don't know. And
I'm not saying she is. I'm just saying. Yeah. Do you think this
it's
is
not out of the realm of possibility? Yes.
Yeah.
But and then there was I don't know. This whole scenario is not. And Gronk at the Brady roast made a joke about it, and it's true.
Which means either we need 30 more minutes of a roast, or Belichick now needs his own roast,
or Gronk needs to be the roast master of that roast. Imagine.
Huh? Very funny, Gronk.
Oh God, you can't make these stories up in this regard. And remember the Walk of Shame video that came out with him shirtless? Apparently that was with her, supposedly. Like, I can't even imagine him them going out for a date on Friday night. Like, all right, Bill, where do you feel like going out tonight? I don't know.
Well, no. I was gonna say. What do you mean Walk of Shame? I have no shame.
You know what? We should go off to Cincinnati.
Yes, let's take a trip to Cincinnati for vacation. All right,
Oh my god.
I'm done. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Empty the Bench Network. Make sure to follow us across social media, Facebook, X, Instagram at ETB Sports. Follow the network, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at ETB Network. Make sure to hit subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. We just passed 770 subscribers. Help us continue to climb. If you don't want to look at our ugly mugs or look at all the technical issues that have been going on my end, you can listen to Empty the Bench wherever you get your podcasts. Any of the Empty the Bench Podcast Network shows, you can listen where podcasts. And then if you want the video feed, you make sure to go to our YouTube home. And and then Zan did bring up the workaround. You can have use YouTube and do it podcast style if you have YouTube Premium. Shout out to our friends over at Playback for great partners with us in the NBA playoffs and the NBA finals, and we hope for continued great success with further on in the future. ETBpodcast.com for more information about the network, plus Zan and his crew just continuing pump blogs. Nick, anything you want to add? Because I know you want to talk about a couple of things.
Yeah, just now that 2 intro videos went out, 2 new shows. One that will be out Sunday, which is called Game Changers. That is Mackenzie Meany and Kelsey Darcy. It is a full women in sports show because, and not that I mean this as a joke by any means, but this whole network has been a sausage fest for quite a while. It's time to bring women in sports to this network and bring a whole fresh perspective to this network. So
why use that term?
It's okay.
Why use that term?
I like that term. But yes, so women in sports, Game Changers, every Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday. Go check that out. And we have another combat sports UFC show coming to the masses called Puncher's Chance, which will be Brett Cagle, who you've already seen doing some content and blogs here, and Anthony Ballister, who they're both friends. They were doing stuff at another network. They're going to come here. They're going to do a podcast here. And that will drop Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So double the fun, double the UFC content, double the combat content, but they will bring a gambling perspective on top of it also. So double the MMA content, more fun with that. And 2 new shows. One this Sunday, one on next Wednesday. So
Okay.
2 new shows.
All right. Looking forward to it. So for Nick, I'm Tom. We'll see you next week for episode 239 of Empty the Bench. Take care, everyone.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.